Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Diamond Sponsored Vendor Hall session with RapidSOS. We're here with Karen Marquez and a team of people that she's going to introduce to you, talking about painting a full picture, comprehensive awareness with video and mapping data. Take it away, Karen.
Thank you so much, Leah, and good morning, everyone. Hope you have your second or third or whatever cup of coffee that you need for this early morning. I'm super excited to be here with you. Again, this is my second session of the morning, and if it's your first, welcome. I'm the Senior Director of Public Safety at RapidSOS, and it is our pleasure to virtually meet you today at Dare to Be Great 3. For those of you who don't know RapidSOS, we are an emergency response data platform that secures and links life-saving data from over 350 million devices and platforms to first responders in emergencies. And you, the first responder, absolutely are the first link in that chain. We work with companies in the security, healthcare, and automotive space to connect their data to 911 and help first responders save millions of lives each year. And we're super excited that we have been right alongside of you all as you have saved tons of lives and sent your stories to us. So we're super excited about that. Thank you for sharing. Joining us today, we have Luz Ponce from the Miami Police Department, Mike Rogers and Dennis Sims from Critical Response Group. And we're going to kick it off and I'll have them introduce themselves as well. So thank you again for joining us today. Luz, I'll have you kick it off with a quick introduction and your role at Miami PD.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Luz Ponce. I'm a Communications Center Administrator with the Miami Police in Miami, Florida. I've been with the City of Miami for 20 years. I'm currently overseeing the payroll, budget, training, the CLAIR accreditation, and I oversee all of the equipment and software in communications.
A big role there, Luz. Thank you so much for being with us. Mike, excited to have you as well. So can you tell us about yourself and your role at CRG?
Yes, Karen, thank you for the opportunity. Everyone, my name is Mike Rogers. I'm the CEO of a company called Critical Response Group, or CRG. My background, I come from a long family of public safety professionals for 5 generations. That's what my family's done. I went a little different direction. I ended up going to West Point and then found my way into the special operations community where I have half a dozen deployments. And I was able to take a number of pieces of technology and techniques off the battlefield, and with the help of public safety professionals, transition them home to increase situation awareness for our first responders. So truly appreciate the time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And last but not least, Dennis, can you give us an introduction and tell us about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dennis Sims. Under Mike's direction, I work for Critical Response Group, and I take the lead on the 911i project. I had a 26-year public safety career, starting off as a young 18-year-old answering phones and actually punching cards with a loud thud that some of you may remember prior to CAD, but then went into the police academy and took the sworn route, and I retired in 2017 as a police captain running a patrol division for suburban Southern New Jersey Police Department.
I love it, Dennis. You're coming from the headset. Woohoo! Back in the day. So today, guys, we're going to discuss the need and value around video and mapping data. And we're going to discuss some really cool solutions that are available to help agencies overcome some challenges. This is going to be an interactive session, so please take a look at your webinar panel. There's a Q&A section. The polls have been posted already, so hopefully you've had a chance to go in and take a look at the questions and provide some responses. Feel free to send questions and we'll get those answered at the end of the session as we can. And we're happy to answer as many of them as we can during our time. So again, let's just go ahead and jump into this discussion talking about painting a full picture with video and mapping data to increase situational awareness and enable better decision making through information. So before we set the stage, Mike, one of the things that I remember the most as a telecommunicator is that when we get a phone call in and somebody's telling us what their emergency is at the moment or non-emergency, as a telecommunicator, we're already painting a picture in our mind of the scene, of the area, and of what is happening. So I'm excited to go through here to talk about how we start actually clarifying that picture through the data that we have and creating more intelligence around that. So can you set the stage for us?
Yeah, Karen, thank you. So what I want to do to set the stage is kind of talk about CRG and the 2 things that we specifically do, all with the goal of increasing situation awareness. for first responders domestically. There are two things that we do. One is emergency video streaming through a software called 911i, which we'll talk about first. Dennis will cover that. But really where that came from were lessons learned overseas, the importance of video information and video intelligence to drive better, more informed decisions. And as we looked at coming home, we wanted to take the same exact kind of capability that we had overseas of, again, this video intelligence. In addition to the video work that we do, the video streaming software, emergency video streaming software is also a very simple mapping technique, also born of lessons learned overseas. And really that's where our company comes from, is this extremely operational background. I would say we're very different than the traditional tech company out there. We've actually built it in a different direction. Again, my background is coming out of special operations. I represent really 1/3 of our team that has these unique experiences on the battlefield, leveraging technology with the intent of driving better, more informed decisions. And then ultimately, how do we take that technology and apply it? We started to bring that technology home, very quickly realized that the next important thing was making sure the technology that came home, and more important, the techniques, were fully inculcated into the culture and the understanding of what the public safety professionals needed to do their job a little more efficient, give them better information. So that's why the second portion of our team is represented by Dennis, who represents a number of individuals working out of public safety, either out of police, fire, or the communication sector, that again helped us take the techniques and the technology and the experiences we had overseas and applying them domestically. And then the last portion of our team are the technical experts that we have, that we were able to, because we very quickly realized the military personnel and the public safety professionals did not have the technical skill sets required to build a first-class piece of software and technical solution. So that's why it was important that we went and found the correct partners, and then also employed our own technical staff to make sure that when we were deploying technology, we're using it as efficiently and as first class as possible. So really, as you look at CRG today, it was built backwards, all with the end in mind of helping a first responder in the field at the frontline trace, to make the most informed, safest decision, and increase their opportunities for success. So with that really kind of sets the stage. And Karen, I'll turn it back to you, ma'am.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. We're excited to learn also from military operations, because as we go into decision making in public safety, it is operational processes and operational things that we're doing. Whether you take it from lessons learned in any fields, you can absolutely apply it to public safety response. So we're going to talk a little bit about the value of video. So Dennis, I'm going to turn it over to you and Luce. And Luce, can you tell us a little bit about challenges that agencies in the United States face today in emergency response, and how live video data can help solve those challenges?
Well, for our agency, I can tell you that live video has given us more situational awareness as to what it is that's going on the scene. It gives us a peace of mind that we have all the resources that are needed for that scene responding. And I guess it gives us that better allocation of the resources that we need to the scene. So if we have a video of what it is that's going on, we can tell, okay, well, we need to send units, we need to send them to this location, or we need to get additional resources, or fire, rescue, or any particular tools they need to respond. We're able to see all that.
That's awesome. What are some of the most important traits you look for when you're looking for a video streaming tool, and why did you pick 911i as that solution?
Well, so the cost efficient is a big one. 911 funds are very limited as to what we can use it for. So, and the cost effective it's a plus. The portability, the availability of it, being cloud-based, all those were the things that we looked at when we chose 911i.
Awesome. And since you're responsible for the budget, that's top of your priority, right?
Yes.
There's sometimes concerns around utilizing live video. We've heard this for many, many years in the industry, as we've been afraid of next generation 911. So those concerns around utilizing live video to support response, as an early adopter, Miami PD, what has your experience been with streaming video?
It has definitely helped us with the situational awareness. I know one of the biggest concerns that we have, and as many other agency has, is that vicarious trauma where they may be exposed to something that may affect them in some kind of way. But I can tell you we've been with 911i for a little over a year, and we haven't had any problems. The fact that the call taker is the one who controls what type of incidents they're gonna send out the link to utilize it with, I think that helps. And I can tell you from my experience, the employees kind of get a little peace of mind or somewhat closure, being able to see the scene and what it is that is really going on, instead of just having all these thoughts running to their minds, trying to imagine it. So
Yeah, I think our imagination runs a little bit wild sometimes when we create those pictures, right? And it is a worst case scenario because that's kind of how we're trained. And so I'm glad to hear that, I am choosing to send you this link. I am prepared to see what may come in. And oh, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. And I'm more informed. I have more awareness. That's awesome. Thank you, Luz, for that. Dennis, can you kind of show us what 911i looks like and some of the capabilities that it has?
Absolutely. So we're going to flip over to Mike. Mike is going to bring up a screen. It's going to have the interface. So the API that's being developed in conjunction with RapidSOS will open up the 9i platform. And as Luz just mentioned a moment ago, it is a cloud-based solution. It resides in Microsoft Azure government. So the levels of security certainly are there. And also the backup, cloud-based backup is there, and also the redundancies are built in. So each agency has their own instance within 911i. So there's no overlap from agency to agency. So, like we're slide.
You're able to see it, Dennis?
Yeah.
Kick over to the, no, we see the slide deck.
Says it's sharing.
It's sharing. It's just on that first slide of painting the full picture.
Yeah.
If we can get over to that landing page, Mike.
You want to just go right into a live demo, Dennis?
Yes. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yep. So as Lou said, the information that's coming by way of the citizens in the field is not always accurate. So she just did speak a moment ago about getting clear information to be able to paint the full picture. So that's what we're going to show here. We'll get to that demo page. And the interface is very simple. It sends out a text message via a device, totally at control. There we go, Mike. Totally at the control of the call taker, or the PST. All right. So on this page right here, we have where you can enter in a telephone number or an email address. All right. Telephone number, SMS being the most common. We have a reference line. That can be a CAD number, a dispatch number. It could be left blank, or it could be an incident type, something that's going to allow for further reference. There is multi-language support. There also is a user guide. So when the link gets sent out, you can see that the interface changes a bit on Mike's end. So he's sending it to my phone. I'm going to walk through a two-step consent process because we want to make sure that the citizen on the other end of the phone understands that they have a role in this process as well. They have some ability to establish the connection, and they have the ability to deny the connection. So as you can see, the live video is playing directly up onto Mike's screen. We have text messaging capability, which is built right in, which Mike is texting in on his end, and I'm receiving on my end. I'm typing right through. This entire solution operates through the browser on the phone. So again, to speak to the security piece, if you will, the hardware of the phone is nothing more than the camera. There's nothing that's going to be downloaded onto the phone. There's nothing that's accessible by the phone. I have two daughters, 17 and 12. That generation is very tech savvy. We want to limit that as much as possible. So the text messaging is going back and forth. The GPS, you can see, has populated in the bottom right corner. There's a 10-second refresh that exists with that. So you have a little bit of a duplication there, the great technology that RapidSOS brings to the table. And you also have the GPS that's built in here. Like if you could scroll down just a tad and hover over that share with. So the live session is going. But what we think is one of the really great features is being able to share the feed out to the first responders, those that are decision makers. The company that we're partnered with, Capita, they're what they call their control room operators. They have a lot of decision-making capability, and that may not necessarily carry over here into the United States. So sometimes those look at my own profession. We want to actually see things to be instrumental in making those decisions. So if I can see what is actually taking place, I can do that. So as Mike presses share on this stream, what is going to happen is the entire live stream that's coming over from my phone is now going to be sent to Mike's phone. So as long as it's a trusted partner, someone that you confirm that the signal being sent out is an intended person, right? You can see if you look at Mike's handsome face there, you can see the phone that's displayed is actually showing the live feed from my phone. And this is really, really awesome to be able to see that, to be able to get the information out. Any text messaging that would go back and forth, I'm going to type back in here, would be pushing through that as well. And that way the first responders, whether it's a single resource or a group of responders, they would be able to see exactly what's taking place and make resource allocation. And if Mike were to press stop share on the computer, that will blank out on his phone, even though the live feed will continue on my end. I'm going to press stop share or stop video on my side. You'll see that it will blank out on Mike's screen. And I'm going to take a photo. Karen's talking a lot about coffee this morning, so my wife was kind enough to run to Dunkin' Donuts for me, Karen. So I'll take a photo of my latte with almond milk. But you will see that the photos and the video will automatically upload into the cloud solution, which is what you see right there. And then I just restart video, and then I can reestablish that connection. Now, it is key in some situations to be able to see multiple vantage points. You can run 4 of these at one time in a single session. I do think in a traditional PSAP setting, it may be a little much, but it is worth noting that that capability is there. And for some internal use cases that we guide our clients down, it has been done. It can be done. But it is a little challenging in a PSAP environment. All of you and your teams have plenty to worry about, let alone 4 callers at the same time. So, all right, and then I'll hit stop video. We'll finish the session out. Mike end on his side. And there's a full audit trail of the entire sequence from start to finish that takes place. And all of that data is maintained, and it will allow you to then retrieve it, store it in your CAD or RMS solution, because all of your, whether it's statutory guidance or it's local guidance, all of your records retention rates are sometimes 30 days, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 5 years. So you can hold on to it for as long as you are obligated to do so, but it will sit here for 30 days until you can allow some decisions to be made in order to retrieve that data. So it's a pretty clean interface. It's going to be a clean carryover with RapidSOS. It's going to put the information into the hands of those who need it. And we're pretty excited to be able to continue to show potential clients and partners going forward. And Luz, to her credit, she has done a great job with her staff. And I've actually been in her presence in her communication center, and it's a very busy place. So we're very happy to have such a great relationship with Luz and her team.
That's awesome, Dennis. So you did mention a couple things like the user guide, which I happened to see the other day, and it was a really dynamic ebook. And what I love and I think is awesome is it seems to use the 911 way of teaching, which is keep it simple, sweetheart, or depending on which acronym you use in your center. But it is very simple. There are pictures that help you really walk through the flow, and even the user interface seems really intuitive and easy to use. But do you support multi-languages? Because I suppose, Luce, in your case, you got people from all over the place visiting Miami, and many that are non-English speaking primarily. So is that a feature you have as well?
Yes, it will support French, Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And it's a pretty quick changeover. It's a drop-down menu, and that will drive it from that point forward. So it will toggle back and forth.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, great demo. Thank you so much. I also love the ability to stream forward, because even if your everyday call, you might want to only see one person's video. You may be working in a tactical situation where, as a telecommunicator, you are working a single incident. You have been removed from the normal operations, and you may be able to manage those 4 feeds to make more sense of an incident or an event. So I think that's pretty cool as well. So let's see, we're going to move on here just a little bit into real world use cases for 911i. So Luce, y'all have had some success stories.
Yes.
Can you share some of those with us, and the scenarios of using RapidSOS Portal and 911i to support response?
Okay, so I can tell you our very first use of the 911i was for an emergency backup for an officer. It was called in by a citizen who was witnessing an officer struggling with a suspect, and the caller could tell that that officer needed help. And they called us, and the call taker sent out the link to her, and we can see the officer struggling with the person. So we have officers on the way. The officers arrive. They're all saying they're arriving. They can't find them. So a combination of the RapidSOS 911i, we have the caller start panning around so we can describe the area of where it is that the officer is at, and using the the RapidSOS to pin the location of the caller. We give that information to the officers, and then we finally see them coming and helping the officer who was struggling with the suspect. So that was our very, very first call, and I think it was like the best way to use the 911i. We've had some other instances. We had an instance where a citizen was calling that there was a male who was obviously having some type of medical emergency. But he was at a park in an area that there were a lot of mangrove trees. For those of you, my call taker was not familiar with mangrove trees, had no idea what they look like. And for those who don't know, 911i definitely painted a picture for that operator. It showed the mangrove trees, they have like a lot of branches that come out, or legs, you can call them, in the bottom. And the person was very deep in the mangrove trees, where you wouldn't really see the person unless you were really looking in there. And he had gone in there apparently to do drugs and was overdosing on the drugs. And the video picture was able to give us situational awareness of what was going on, so that we can get not only our police and fire and medical personnel, but also the appropriate resources to be able to cut through those branches to get to where the person was at.
I had no idea what a mangrove tree was, and I just Googled it. Wow, that is interesting for sure.
Yes. Another instance we had, this one was very recent. We had jet skiers. Miami is surrounded by water, and we had citizens who were calling from it was a lot of citizens calling in from the condos that are near the water, that they see jet skiers that are out in the water and they're screaming for help. So they're obviously in distress. We send out the 911i link, and we can see that the jet skiers are out there in the water. We hear noises, what sounds like maybe it's them calling out for help. And then in the same video, while the call taker stays connected with them, we use RapidSOS. We use the 911i to obtain the location, get the visual. We have officers on land arrive, And then you see on the same video the officers and the Marine Patrol officers arriving in the boats and rescuing the jet skier. So that one was definitely one of those where that operator got a good feeling like, yay, I got to help him and I got to see it all play out through 911 eyes. Let me see. There's one more example. This one was most recent too. The citizen, it was a Amazon driver. He's doing his delivery, going through his route, and he notices in our Wynwood area that there is a male that is on the other side of a balcony hanging. Like, he looks like maybe he's about to jump, and he's afraid that if he's not feeling suicidal, that he may slip and fall. So he calls to report it, and he sends out we send out the link, we get the picture. He does a combination of both pictures and video. Again, RapidSOS and 911i together help us with verification of the address. And we go to put out the call, but we share the link with the officers, and the officers automatically identify, oh, wait, don't worry about dispatching that call. That is a mannequin. It's not a real person. It just happened to be in our art district, and I guess it was part of the art display that they had out there.
That's so amazing. I mean, I love the boat incident, but that one as well. So from a boat incident, it's great to have that closure and to see responders, get to somebody. And I know that I helped. And then on the other side of that, these officers are so familiar with their beats in their district, and they kind of know what's going on, and they may have driven by it 5 times, right? And so for them to know right away, no, it's just a mannequin. Again, I just see how that can alleviate that stress and pressure from what am I thinking is happening out in the field, and what do I see is actually occurring? And then I can move on to that next call and not let that go home with me and just continue to wonder. Luz, thank you so much. One last question for you here is, why are you excited about the joint solution and this partnership between RapidSOS and the 911i solution initially?
Well, I can tell you which one my employees will love the most. The fact that it'll all be under one login and they don't have to have multiple logins. So I
will
think that one
celebrate
is the biggest. Yes. We have a long list in comm centers, a long list of logins that we need to remember. So it being all part of one solution, that I think it's awesome.
I absolutely agree with that. And I am excited to help streamline that login process so that you all can access the tools that you need the most through one application. So thank you so much, Luz.
You're welcome.
Mike, we're going to transition a little bit into operationalizing mapping data. And I can geek out on maps a little bit too, so this one makes me really excited. CRG 911i and RapidSOS have partnered to bring these tools to you at your fingertips, at your workstation, all through one simple login. So we want to talk about how do we paint the pictures with map data and talk about what are CRGs. So I'm going to tell you a really, really quick story about how I got to know about Mike and team. Many, many years ago when I was still in 911, I was working really closely with our SWAT team, and they had gone to a class that was held by some folks that had a lot of military experience, and they were teaching them about map grids or GRG mapping. And they came back to me and they said, it was my SWAT sergeant, and he was like, Karen, have you ever heard of this? I want you to go online right now and go and search for grid mapping, and we need to figure out how to get this rolling in our center. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, this is like serious military stuff. I don't know what to do, how to use it. You guys went to this training. It was amazing. But I saw the value very, very quickly in how from the field inside of communications, mutual aid, automatic aid responders can operate off of a common operating picture. One view, everybody's speaking the same language. And whether it's, an active shooter incident, a pre-planned incident, or something that happens on the fly, the ability to all see the same thing and to speak the same language I just really understood that so quickly, and I was really excited to try to find a solution to help. And so then I get to meet Mike and team at CRG. And so I'm really excited for him to share with you what this is and how we use it, how we operationalize it, and speak the same language and see the same picture.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. I'm going to try to do a better job this time sharing my screen to pull up my presentation. But can you see that now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So what we're so excited about is really to take lessons learned overseas. And again, that's what our whole business was built around, was to take lessons learned, help transition them domestically, and then take the lessons learned overseas and apply them domestically. And really one of the biggest is we looked at the way the military started operating around 2006 and 2007. You had this organization within military special operations called JSOC, which is comprised of SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and the 75th Range Regiment and the intelligence communities. And we were really geographically dispersed across the countries that we were operating in. So what we realized is that the importance of our communication centers was really help pull information out of the field, push information, kind of push and pull in all directions. And that's where these regional operations centers really are our concepts overseas became extremely important. But as we started to scale the operations, we very quickly realized we had to create a common operating picture. And the other problem was that every night we were going to locations that we were not familiar with operating in. So imagine, just like responders today are responding to locations that they're not familiar with, it's a difficult thing to communicate about that location, to navigate effectively, to provide an accurate report. And what the military did to solve that problem was, instead of looking at a piece of imagery, a piece of aerial imagery, we turned it into a very simple, crude operating picture called a GRG in the military, or American traffic. And you see it's very simple, letters across the top, numbers to the left-hand side. All the buildings are labeled, all the intersections labeled, and north is up with the imagery. And because everyone's looking at the same piece of paper, the military made it mandatory that everyone from a communications professional to an operational professional, independent of brand, discipline, or level of training, we all looked at the same document. Well, would it help the military scale our special operations capability? And it was transformative because how simple it was for us now to communicate on this simple piece of paper. So in 2008, the military made the simple crude technique mandatory, and it's been used in every single night raid from then until today. As you're looking at here, this very famous picture of the Bin Laden raid, as you look at that, you'll see, Secretary Clinton is looking at the same exact printed out gridded piece of paper of the operational location, and the same exact one that the operators have printed on their form in Pakistan. And I show this because, in my opinion, it truly validates the technique. When you think about the Bin Laden raid, you think about the resources that our country brought to bear to execute the operation. Anything we wanted at our fingertips, but this is how we did it because it works. So my background, about a third of our team, we come into this world. We knew this technique to be best practice. This is what we wanted to bring home. But as we brought the technique home, we very quickly realized that it was not a simple into the space. The reason for that is every single piece of infrastructure across the country.
Hey, Mike.
Yes,
sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. Luce, would you do me a favor and mute your mic, because we're getting some feedback and audio issues from when Mike's talking. Thank you so much. Mike, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Karen. So what we realized is that when we came home, that gridded technique did not apply domestically. And the main reason was because every single piece of infrastructure in the country has an emergency action plan that's represented by the binder on the left-hand side. So what we want to do is understanding the reality of what's in place, and that's where Dennis and the other professionals of the public safety space helped us realize, is that there's already a nomenclature and labels for every building in the country. And that's a very important piece of the puzzle. So what we wanted to do was understand the reality of the situation, what's in place today, and then also take lessons learned overseas and kind of meet in the middle. And as we started to do that, we identified 3 primary issues that we had to overcome to create a common operating picture. The first issue is that imagery is always presented in true north. So if you look at Google Earth, Bing Mapping, any of the imagery systems or software programs that are running in your CAD systems today, they present imagery in a true north orientation. But when we look at the schematics on file, and I go from this north is up piece of imagery to the blueprint that's on file with the public safety answering point, with the police department, the fire department, this is the blueprint. And you'll see here the gold star on this blueprint and the gold star on the imagery are off by about 180 degrees. And that's because although imagery is in true north, blueprints or schematics are within project or plan north, which is arbitrary. They're all rotated in a different cardinal direction. So just nothing standardized as we're talking off of it in orientation. The second problem is that all the schematics are mostly inaccurate. We've done about 5,000 buildings across the country today. Less than 1% of them have accurate schematics on file from a structural perspective. And then lastly, the blueprints no longer reflect the plain text nomenclature associated with this location. Meaning that as you look at this, and imagine you know this better than I, but someone calls 911 and says, please, there's an incident, I'm having chest pains and I'm in the metal shop. But if you're looking at this, no one took the time to label where the metal shop is. So as a company, what we do is we also overlay the plain text labels of every location for this facility. So what we do is fix the three problems as we rotate them true north, so they're standardized in orientation. We make sure that they're an accurate, reliable schematic, and then we make sure that they're properly labeled so everyone can communicate off the same exact graphic in the plain text nomenclature of the facility. So I'm going to show a very quick animation. What we do is we take whatever's on file, cut it out, rotate it so it's true north on an up-to-date piece of aerial imagery. We then walk every single structure with engineering software and we correct the base schematic. So if that facility has moved walls, moved doors, changed things, we go through and actually update the schematic. So now I have an accurate base schematic. While on site, we work with the security and facilities team to gather all of the labels associated with the location in plain text to match this specific location. So if they have door A or door B53, we will take the label from the location and overlay it on top to match it. So when someone calls 911 and they say, I'm outside door 6, it matches the actual ground truth of the facility. We also take the time to find all the critical features associated with the location that would be important from a response perspective, namely the fire access control panel, the gas shutoff, the electrical disconnects, the camera locations, the Knox box locations, riser locations, AED locations. All of that gets marked as an additional layer. And then the last thing we do is leverage the technique of the military gridded system. We apply it on top. No matter who you are, public safety telecommunicator, firefighter, police officer, security professional, school administrator, we've now created a base language that everyone can talk off of. And when we do that, all that work goes to creating a very simple, usable final product. It's called a CRG, or a collaborative response graphic. Now, on the example in front of you, just to show you how simple it is, if north is up on the imagery, if I asked you the northeastern side of the building, I want you to find grid square J4. And I just want you to play a game of Battleship with me where you find J on the top right, the top left, kind of meet in the middle like Battleship. And inside grid square J4, you'll see it's marked door D. So now I want you to come through door D onto the back hallway and make your first right meet me in the media center. And I'm able to put you into the media center in grid square H4. I know I put you through a specific door to a specific part of this building, and most likely no one's ever been to this school in central New Jersey before. And ultimately, that's all that we're looking to do is flatten the communication and enable it to be clear and concise. And that's really one of the main things that we're trying to do is flatten the communication and independent of discipline and jurisdiction, enable all responders to communicate as efficiently as possible about this location that most likely no one's ever been to before. When we create maps, we create two types of maps. First is a macro or a high altitude perspective of the campus, more of a command and control exterior shot. But what's important about this is if you realize on row 8 on the bottom, you'll see there's two different pieces of imagery that come together. And this is what makes us very special, is we're the only ones with access to a very specific piece of military mapping technology that enables us to take imagery off of any platform that's collecting imagery. So satellites, drones, airplanes, doesn't matter. We can take that and then ultimately use any of those imagery sources and stitch them together like a jigsaw puzzle, which enables us to do two things. One is to replace bad imagery with good, up-to-date imagery, but most importantly, it enables us to maintain the metadata associated with this specific location, basically the latitude and longitude associated with every pixel in the picture. And because the base imagery is smart, when we then go and get our hands on the schematics that are usually rolled up in a basement somewhere, and we digitize them and we make them to scale, and we correct them and we color code them, we overlay the labels, we overlay the critical features, and now this gets geospatially referenced on top of the imagery, the blueprint now becomes geospatially relevant. So our integration with RapidSOS, why it's so important to us, is now when they're able to geolocate that caller location, and we've geolocated this schematic that's now accurate, you can real-time plot that person internal to a structure. Also important to point out on this graphic is if you look on the northeastern side of the building, you'll see the doors are marked with green circles in accordance with the national standards. But as I go from south to north, and if you can see grid square I5, and the door there is marked door 9, but as I go from south to north, you see it goes door 10, 11, 12, 29, 13, and the doors are mislabeled? Well, the reason for that is because at this specific facility, the doors are mislabeled, which is why it's so important that we go building by building, label by label, first correct the schematics because they're all wrong, and then also correct the accurate labels, which are a lot of times just don't make sense. That's why it's important. That's why we're going to every building, collecting all that information, putting it on a file, and then ultimately providing it in a way that it's simple enough to be utilized with a minimal amount of training. Now, I've showed a number of schools, and schools are really the moral underpinnings of the business. We have a number of locations where we've done all the schools and states and regions, but also the same technique applies to places of worship, very large hospital complexes. Really, the technique applies across the board. It doesn't matter if it's a county park or if it's a hospital, a sporting venue. Our goal is to take all the different schematics throughout your communities, find them first, standardize, and then push them out. The last problem that we've had to overcome was due to the lack of interoperable systems within public safety, and due to the large problem of all the floor plans are actually in different file formats. Understanding that reality, the first thing that we do is when we're contracted, and rarely are we contracted by public safety. Sometimes we are, but more often than not, public safety just adopts this as a best practice in their community. And then we go building by building, and we're contracted by those building owners to put the schematics that they have in an understandable format in the systems that public safety uses today. So to walk it from left to right, the problem is you go through your communities or the floor plans are represented on the far left-hand side. Some buildings have rolled up blueprints, some have AutoCAD drawings. A lot of times they're just in different file formats. So step one is finding the current reality, finding the schematics we need. There's not a day that goes by that we're contracted to do a school or a building. We're doing we're doing Molson Coors across the country right now, all the distillery plants across from Molson Coors. And they've literally sent us boxes and boxes and boxes of just different floor plans for a single building because there's just been so many renovations. And out of those 200 pieces of paper, we'll take out the 10 that we need. So step one is finding it. Step two is fixing the schematic, making it correct and properly labeled. And the last thing is ensuring that the maps can be disseminated in a file format that the responders can actually access them. And that's, again, why we're so excited about the relationship that we enjoy with RapidSOS, is that this is the primary way that we're pushing the maps out into the communication sector, in through their portal, into jurisdictional view. So you're going to be able to instantaneously pull that graphic up if a caller is calling from a location we've mapped, and also geolocate that caller's location, internal or external to the location. This is an example on the top left of what it looks like internal to a facility, but also if it's, a lot of times we do county, state, and federal parks where we have all the trails marked, and imagine someone calls in and says that they broke their leg. We'll have mapped where the yellow trail is. So that person will be able to see exactly where they are with the context, everything labeled. But in addition to putting the maps into RapidSOS, we strive to put it into a number of different systems. So if we're talking about a school, whatever panic alarm that they have, we want to make sure that they have it there. We want to work with the individual CAD vendors, which we do across the country. That's another way that we disseminate the maps into the public safety community. And when I look, I'm from Ocean County, New Jersey, there's about 40 different police departments. There's 5 or 6 different CAD vendors across those agencies. So it's very important that they use jurisdiction view from their county PSAP. So that's how they get it. But then into the individual police departments, all 39 police departments have, independent of whatever CAD vendor they have, the same exact map that's up in jurisdictional view, that's in the panic button that the school has, that's in potentially a mobile application that a state or federal agency is showing up with. With that completes kind of the formal presentation of what CRG does. And if anyone's interested in additional information, we'd be more than happy to conduct individual presentations more in depth on both CRGs and 911i. But really, what we're so proud about, what we're trying to accomplish as a company, is to take non-theoretical solutions that are extremely well validated, that only fit the purview of driving better decisions faster and to flatten communication. And really, that's where the mapping technique came from initially. And then as we started to look at what else, in our opinion, would very useful for public safety, it's ultimately that video streaming to be able to provide better context, better information, and enable better decisions faster. So with that, I appreciate it.
Mike, thanks so much. We had a question come in that says that they missed the verbiage reference blueprints or plans versus True North. Can you kind of just go back into that briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to stop sharing very quickly. So the question about schematics, when you look at a traditional schematic on file today, there's a couple of issues. And the way that the architects or engineers orient them when you do an initial set of schematics is in what's called Project or Plan North, which is not tied to North is up. So really it's up to that individual architect or engineer to go and orient it whatever way they want to. So a lot of times when you look on a set of as-built schematics, there'll be a North is up arrow on the original. But what we see literally thousands of times is that over time, someone just, copies that blueprint and then that North arrow gets removed. So you just don't even have an orientation as to which way or something to orient it off of. What we also see is that imagine you're, no one would know better than the public safety telecommunicators. You receive a call and imagine you have all the blueprints on file. They're simply oriented differently. So now imagine you pull your floor plan and in a perfect world, which they don't have, a police officer and a firefighter all have maps on different sides of the building that are out there. And as they're looking at it, you just oriented it differently because that's the way you pulled it out of the binder. So right is not right and left is not left. And what we've seen is this is just, it's not necessarily common knowledge that this problem exists. When we came out, we were going to just put overlay grids and try to put the labels on top of the structures. It was not our intent to have to try to find a solution to fix the schematics. But as we started to look at the problem, our whole business had to transition to say, okay, there's a major issue here of when someone calls in, that the civilians today expect that when they call 911 and you say you're in the cafeteria of the high school, they just assume that you know what you're talking about. That's an unrealistic expectation. And now as you apply that across the thousands and thousands of buildings in a community, one, the information is not on file, and two, if it is on file, it's not standardized. So if they said you have to come into the hallway and make a left, I hope you're looking at the piece of paper the same way I am, because if not, and unfortunately, we look at all the after action reviews from the Navy Yard shooting to Parkland to, location is a very difficult thing. And, that's what we realized in the military was 80% of communication is about location on a radio. And when we implemented this tool so we could all speak more efficiently and navigate more efficiently, it really cut down our radio traffic. So I apologize. That was a long answer as to the orientation of the graphics, but that's why it's such an important thing that we've had to dive into trying to solve.
No, I think it's incredibly valuable, Mike, because we talk about, when we speak the common language, we're all speaking the same dialect, which means we're all going to get to the same place or the same answer, right? And we're going to do that much quicker. When we're not speaking the same language and you say to turn left, just like you mentioned, we may be speaking a different dialect and left may be something different to me. And if I take that wrong turn, something bad could potentially happen. So aside from schools and places of worship and sporting venues, I know that you all have done some work also in providing some of these intelligent maps for civil unrest as well. It's not necessarily a planned event. So can you just talk about that real quick before we look into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Karen. So one of the big things is the business started, the natural evolution of it was pre-planning critical infrastructure and solving a problem within a community of, I want every police officer, every firefighter, every public safety telecommunicator to have a common set of graphics for all the critical infrastructure. So that's everything that you just highlighted. And in the communities that we've done that, this becomes the standard for how we respond to a critical incident. But as you know better than I, that we will never map out every single location that an incident could potentially unfold at. It's going to be, a park where a child goes missing. It's going to be a Kmart parking lot where there's a large fight. It's going to be a downtown district where there's civil unrest. And that's not a location that we have pre-mapped. So we have developed the capability on the same standard to put maps out the door in about 20 to 25 minutes. So there's a number of locations that when a child goes missing, now imagine every school in the county is planned that way. So all the responders, independent of discipline and jurisdiction, know how to use a gridded map. They now call and say a child walked off in this location. Within 20 minutes, that map is being disseminated out in the field. So the same technique and standard that they use for respond to an active threat or to a heart attack is now for a missing child. We're also doing a substantial amount of work, to your point, with civil unrest. We're supporting Chandler, Arizona very heavily through as they were dealing with that. Director Potts has been amazing. And we're able to, she gave us a call very quickly and said, we have civil unrest at here, here, and here. Can you create some graphics? So we had a mobile application we used to push the stuff out. We pushed it out through the RapidSOS platform. And then, the individuals now had a common map for those locations. So a police officer, a firefighter, communicator, and in an incident like that, where it's mutual aid, you're bringing so many additional resources to a location that they've never stepped foot in before, which is the same exact problem that we saw in the military. And that's why I know the military, and we're very conscious that the military is not public safety. But we have to look at those lessons learned and apply them home. And I think as you go back and look at other lessons learned, and you look at the Vietnam War and you look at the Korean War, that directly led into level one trauma centers across the country. That was not that was not part of the equation prior to 1974. We didn't have level one trauma centers, but because of how we dealt with it in the military, those lessons came home. Some really smart individuals transitioned those lessons, and then that now became the reality and how many lives that saved. So I think that's where there's definitely these correlations between our experiences, Dennis's experiences, your experiences, and then enabling us to, evolve the ball, and Luz's experiences to help us take what we're doing and ultimately, make the world a little bit better.
I love that. From a planned event to an unplanned event, we're all speaking the same language and we have the same picture. It's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the future, because this is where it gets really exciting, right? Luz, what other technologies would you like to see in the future to help dispatchers and first responders paint a fuller picture of incidents?
Sorry, technical difficulties. Well, I'm very curious to see where RapidSOS is going with the smart buildings and the autonomous vehicles. You guys are doing some great stuff, so can't wait for that.
Awesome. And we want to hear from everyone else that's joining as well. So throw it in the chats. What are you all excited about? Mike and Dennis, what other innovations are you hoping to introduce in the future to better support our telecommunicators and responders out in the field?
I think what we're most excited, Karen, is our relationship with RapidSOS and your ability to geolocate a device, on X, Y, and ultimately the Z axis. But as we realize, as you're getting better at that, and we're really kind of bringing the game with the indoor mapping, and then you kind of marry those things together to be able to really accurately geolocate an individual internal to a structure. That is one of the things I believe is the future. And now it's just a matter of how we get there as efficiently as possible. And I don't want to speak for Dennis, but we're also so excited about 911i and the impact that's making in the space. How do we get it out there as efficiently as possible? And really just ultimately the training and the acceptance of that technology within the space. Really, as you look at, as you do anything new, and we've been doing this for a couple of years, even with the mapping, we're fortunate we're very successful at that. We had to push that boulder up a hill for a number of years. When everybody would look at it first and say, of course we know what the school looks like. And then as you start to explain it, you realize that this problem. And video streaming, as this is really starting to take off, we're seeing substantial traction with that really within the last year. I'm excited to see where that goes and how it ultimately transforms the space, all with the idea of making it simpler for the end responder and that end user to just make the most informed decision possible.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. Dennis, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. There's two things on the tech side. I can tell you that we're in constant communication with our partners and with our clients, seeking feedback. So we have really two exciting things that are coming in the pipeline. The one that I really would like to highlight is, if you imagine a secure FaceTime, we all have FaceTime calls or something, some digital platform where we have video conferencing. But we are set to release in the 9i infrastructure a secure platform where you can actually have a secure video conference, of video chat, and we'll operate all within that same system, so you don't have to log out to and go to another program. So it's we're setting the stage for that to be released, and the beauty of a cloud-based solution is I can just email Luz or send her a message and say, you're going to log in and you're going to see something new. Let's set up some training. All right, so that kind of leads into the next piece. And again, under Mike's direction, under our career experience, we're a 24/7 company. We're not 9 to 5. So if there's an issue, many times we get text messages, we get phone calls, and as a client in a 24/7 operation, you expect an answer, not, hey, we're closed. Again, we respect that, and we still function in that same format. So from a technical side, that digital interview piece, and then from a corporate side, again, under Mike's directions and expectations, which we're all completely fine with, service the clients to the highest level possible and do what you do best.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dennis. And it looks like we've answered a couple of the questions, and poll results are in. For those of you who are interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out to us. Mike, I think on one of the slides we had the landing page information to click, but I'm going to also share a few more things for the folks. So we are at about 54 minutes. If you have any other questions, please feel free to just pop it in the chat or in the Ask a Question section. But I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time today to hang out with us, learn a little bit more about video streaming and really smart maps and speaking a common language and painting a very clear picture for our first responders and for those of us in the 911 center or 911 professionals. Luce, Mike, Dennis, I want to thank you as well. And I want to remind everybody that RapidSOS is going to be joining Ricardo and Leah at After the Greatness live stream tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Mountain, and 2 o'clock Pacific time. So you want to make sure that you tune in to the live conversation as well. And if you have any additional questions there, you please feel free to ask them. If you're interested in learning more about the two solutions that we covered today, please visit either of these landing pages. So we've got rapidsos.com/critical-response-group and rapidsos.com/911i. And further questions, you can feel free to reach out to our amazing public safety team at csm@rapidsos.com. And my email is up here as well. So again, thank you all so much for joining. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and we dare you to continue to be great. And thank you, Ricardo, for hosting this amazing conference.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Karen, I think you wrapped that up perfectly. So we will see everyone in the next sessions. Have a good one.